The moment is here, you can stop your search. It's Comics by Perch.
Hey everybody, this is Perch. As the channel winds down, let's get a little bit more personal on at least a couple topics. And I want to tell you a bit of a history of how I got here. Again, you can believe it, you cannot believe it, you can dismiss it. I mean, it doesn't really matter to me. I mean, if you're listening to the channel and you've been listening for a while, you're bought into something. Whether it's just some basic entertainment or somebody to laugh at or a lol cow or whatever it happens to be for you. But I want to explain a couple things about comics. So I listened to a video from Zach around, the comic industry, did this to itself. Basically, it's responding to an article by Joseph Village. And thankfully, it's not a point-by-point response. It's just more of a general response. And he mentioned something in there that I think I said once upon a time, but it may have come from somewhere else. I've said it before. I certainly believe it. So I don't need the credit for it, but I certainly do believe the statement, which is, the next Frank Miller, the next Jim Lee, is not working in comics. That individual, that talent, has gone somewhere else. And so it's people bemoan like, where's the next Jim Lee? Where's the next Frank Miller? Where's the next Mike Miller? Mark Miller. Sorry, there is a Mike Miller. I'm talking about Mark Miller. Where's the next Mark Millar? There you go. That helps straighten it out a little bit. Where is that person? Well, that person exists. Talent exists all the time, everywhere. It's just they don't always go into the field. They don't always succeed, their predecessors. I don't like this expression. I've used it before, but I always dislike it. And this video that Zach did helped me explain why I dislike it. It's we stand on the shoulders of giants. Have you heard that one? It gets used a lot in comics. We stand on the shoulders of giants. And in fairness, most of the people who use it mean it as a compliment. What they mean is people like Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, George Perez. They built the foundation. They built the base that we all get to stand on and play with. If they had not done the hard work to establish this amazing universe of comics, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. So we stand on their shoulders. And I think, it's meant positive, but I don't like it because it basically, the other way to look at this is to say, hey, there were legends, there were greats that created amazing things. And now we stand on top of them. But the reality is a lot of people who are standing on that platform don't deserve to be there. Just because you're standing on Jack Kirby's shoulders doesn't mean you're the next Jack Kirby. Chances are you're not. And I mean, there's just an image there of somebody did a bunch of hard work and they're down kind of on their hands and knees, or they're struggling under your weight because you're on top of them. That just, I don't like the kind of mental image that brings. Now, again, I know that's not what people mean, so don't go out and crap on people who use that phrase. That's not what they mean. But when you look at talent, when you look at kind of the evolution of a business, it's not all a straight line. It's not like everybody who comes next is automatically better. They're not. In fact, many cases, you get businesses that go into remission. That's very, very common. And that's where you get a bunch of people who do something big and they create a huge foundation, they create a big business, and the people who come along later mismanage that business or do not take the time to understand what made it great, what, the fundamentals that help prop that business up. It's very common. It's why a lot of when businesses are inherited by kids, there's a decent chance it blows up. It blows up because there's a lot of things that are not taught in a book that go into running a business. And, if you don't put in the sweat in order to do it, you miss some of those lessons. You don't get that gut instinct developed. I've done well for myself. And so I meant as a brag because I never did well for myself lazing around. I worked my ass off and probably too hard. I think there will be a reckoning at some point for me about, if I should have spent more time with my kids and my family. As my children are growing up, increasingly I think that. I think, I'm missing key parts of their life that I can't get back. It's a one-way track. When my cousin died, it shook me deeply. And you start thinking about things like all the moments that you can't have now. Because you think to your head, I'll work really hard and I'll get that break later. I'll work really hard and that'll set me up to, be able to enjoy that wealth or that whatever, that security later. Well, the reality is you don't always get a later. In fact, you usually don't get a later. I miss rocking my daughter, when she was a child, singing her to sleep. All those years at doing karaoke in Japan paid off, or not. The greatest thing about an infant is they can't tell you suck, so it's perfect. But there's no getting that back. And so you think about kind of where you're investing your time and what you're doing in life. With comics, I ran stores and directly and indirectly. What I mean by indirectly is I was the money guy. I was a person who owned the business. I was a person who went into the shop once a week. And sometimes I worked in the shop every day. I like comics. It always, pulled at my heart. You ever have something like that? It just, this is what feels right to you. This is just good. You feel natural doing comics. The reason why this channel has survived for so many years, it's in so many videos. I mean, the reality is, even if I have a shorter kind of, video channel lifespan, doing 3 videos a day, there are thousands of videos up. It's going to be a shame when I nuke the whole channel and they all go away. Anyway, but thousands of videos, thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of content. It's easy for me to talk to it. Some people say, well, how do you come up with your ideas? Easy. I love comics. I turn on the microphone and I start talking and it's natural. So why not do more with comics? Well, I intend to. I closed my store right a little bit before COVID, back in October of 19. Now, there's a couple things going on, some of which I've talked about on the air. Of just, there was a co-funded deal with this shop, and it just got annoying. The other person involved was frustrating. The shop did well, wasn't losing money, nothing like that. Wasn't closed for bad business sense. The bad business part was, don't get into business with a partner. They will have different ideas of how things go. Eventually, those ideas will collide with yours, and then, you get stuck. And so, that was one big reason. Kind of sold off the asset. The second is, had some, pain, some, issues, health issues. Got through that. Haven't talked about that much. Don't plan to. And then also just wanted a new concept for a comic book shop. And several of you who I've interviewed off the air, we've talked about that, and still believe that's a good idea, still plan to do it. So the plan was, though, to shut down and open back up around February, March of 2020. Well, February, March of 2020 turned out to suck for everyone. So COVID hit and it delayed. And then, found a spot, and spot got, not destroyed, but there was a big looting incident that took place in Bellevue at the Bellevue Square. You can look up 2020 Bellevue Square, and you can probably find the news out of this. Anyway, during the place, it was getting built out. Ultimately, I think it became a Dave & Buster's and a Target. In that little area was where the new shop was going to be. And on the way to loot the Bellevue Square, some people went by and, robbed some stuff from the construction site. And then it felt like every sign was kind of flashing in my face to say, it's not the time. The COVID may continue. We don't know. Back in the summer of 2020, you had no idea what was going on. If you lived in the state of Washington, it wasn't like Texas or Florida where COVID never existed in the first place. Things looked like they were going to stretch on. So I waited. And then some other consulting gigs came up, and then some other consulting gigs came up. And finally, one came up that I couldn't refuse. And that's how I wound up down here in Texas. Still plan to do a shop. But the reason why that video that he did kind of resonated so well with me is that, for many people, you'd look at this and go, hey, I love comics, jump in with both feet. Who cares about the consequences? Go. But I look at it and I go, hey, there's more money to be made here. There's a better There's a better angle. I need to, do this. The opportunity is right in front of me. I still plan to do stuff in comics. There's a couple people who know this. Still going to step into it. But it kind of goes back to that point of a lot of the people perhaps who should be in comics, and I'm not, patting myself on the back. I have some ideas certainly for how comics can work and everything else, but there's a lot of really talented people out there, but they're making a lot of the same decisions I made. They are thinking about kind of this business of, opportunistically, which is what a lot of people who, have money, have kind of business acumen do. They look at things opportunistically and they go where the money is and they go where the opportunities are. And comics as a whole hasn't been that destination point for a while. That's the big challenge. It should be, but it's not. It should be a place that everybody gets excited about, and especially with these billion-dollar movies and everything else you can do with the passion of making comics and doing all these things, it should be where people can go. But it's not. There's too many bad business decisions. There's too many, goofy, unpredictable things that go on. There's too many people who remain in comics who really have no business being there. Too many people standing on the shoulders of giants who don't deserve to stand there, do not know what they're doing. And they make it bad for the rest of us. I was never going to be a great artist by any stretch of imagination. I love comic art. I drew comics. I've got this, forever project that I'm doing where I'm writing and drawing it myself. I've realized kind of late that I'm not a commercial artist, and that commercial artist would have gotten their shit together and gotten this thing done. A hobbyist, a passion artist, or hobby artist, whatever you want to call it, is somebody who is going to continue to nurse this thing around till the end of time because it's fun for them to do so. That's me. I'm that person. I feel like if I would have buckled down and, put the effort in and really taught myself the fundamentals and been disciplined and everything else, I could have been a mediocre artist. Would have never been a Jim Lee or anybody like that, but I would have been mediocre. But I didn't do that because there was always a really clear sign of being able to contribute in the way that I could contribute in comics, make money, and that was owning shops, running shops, and not drawing. I have ideas I think would be good for comics. I'd love to, take a spin at writing, but today, if I became a comic writer, I would basically have to explain to myself and my family why I was going to take what is a 95% drop in salary and get into an industry, more importantly, that there's zero security in. And when I say zero security, I don't just mean the lack of benefits, lack of a contract. I mean, the exclusives, by the way, are borderline a joke. When you hear those announced at DC, Romby, and good for you, got the exclusive at DC. Still a joke. It's not that it comes with security. Not really. A little bit of extra cash, sure, but not what's necessary, not what's good. But, beyond just that, there's just too many people. There's too many people who are going to take you out for no good reason, for jealousy. And politics exists in every company, in every business. The difference with comics is that, generally speaking, in a corporation, people who play politics have to have at least some game themselves. They have to have at least some talent. Otherwise, nobody listens to their kind of manipulation. In comics, you can have people with no discernible real talent, no history of sales, no history of anything other than just causing trouble. Very, it was not very popular, but a writer at Marvel for a long time just went to DC, legendary in screwing people over behind the scenes. Legendary. Everybody knew it. She would find out who was going to be put on a book. She would lobby the editors, put her on the book instead. She was a rude, mean person. Probably one of the most baffling examples of somebody who really should have had a lot more commentary sent her direction but people were, more obsessed with, Vita and all the rest. This is a legitimately bad person. Mediocre sales. Never put up any sales that were substantial. Never had a comic consistently selling over 40,000 copies, ever. And yet was allowed for a decade to manipulate and screw people over, and now is going to head over to DC to do the same thing. Why would you enter an industry like that? As a creator, you have to really love comics, and you have to have basically some other form of your life that is secure, that can keep you kind of invested and feeling good about yourself to even bother to enter into something like that. It's a mess. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it. My older daughter is showing a lot of aptitude for art, more than I had when I was her age. She's like, I could draw some comic books. I'm like, I don't want you to. As a hobby, sure. I don't want you, get that science degree. The telling part is I've lived my life loving comics in comics, pushing for comics. And I'm a father now who deeply cares about his children. And I would never recommend, I would try and urge my children not to go into comics unless they own the company, unless they own the publisher. And then that's a whole different game. I will have an impact in comics. I will do more, but I'm going to own the publisher. Hands down. There's no way I'm doing this kind of with so much at risk where just kind of random elements can happen. There's no way. I'll leave you this point. It's probably a video in itself, so I'll try and do this video at another time, but it's kind of like a little teaser, a little tease for a video in the future. It's somewhat common sometimes in business where you get a strong, nice, sustainable big business, and then it gets popular. The pop culture kind of comes into it. You look at kind of the origins behind TSR and Dungeons & Dragons, and it follows a similar path. And you have people, maybe they're a little quirky, but they have a passion for whatever this thing is, whatever they built. And so they go for it, and they make a solid business, and it works. And great. And then, the business grows, it expands. They hire more people. Time goes by. Eventually, you have an ecosystem that's built up around this thing. All good. And what happens is that slowly, the founders, the people who got it all moving, they start to kind of, they start to fade out. They've made their money. And plus, running the business is not fun anymore. They miss kind of what they originally did to build the business that, they have today. They miss kind of the fun. And so they kind of fade out and they leave the business in the hands of others. And those others invariably screw it up because they lower the bar from the original vision down to something that is, good for everyone. And it sounds like a nice thing, right? Who wouldn't want a business that's, everyone can enjoy? It just should be inclusive of everyone. I'm not talking about, by the way, gender or sexuality. I'm just talking about people. Okay? I'm talking about talent. Some businesses are not meant to be for everyone. All businesses, for that matter, are not meant to be for everyone. They're meant to be for experts, for specialists. And so one of those big lies that we tell ourselves is this idea of, oh no, businesses, everyone should get to be part of it. Well, no. Actually, no. If you are a surgeon, it should be possible for anyone to become a surgeon, but the job is not just open for everyone. There's a big difference between anyone can do this and it's possible for someone to do this. If you go and you get the education and you get to be an expert and you're good at being a surgeon, go, then you will be a surgeon. But if you have a dream to be a surgeon, but you don't take any education, you're just naturally bad at it, you're clumsy, you don't deserve that job just because you want it. In comics, like anything else, we've gone from kind of something where experts built up a platform, the giants, if you will, to this idea that everyone should be able to do this. No, it's possible for everyone to do this. Everyone can't do this. Everyone shouldn't do this. Experts should do this. Anyway, for what it's worth, thanks for listening.